think I may finally be ready to finish this long series on a pluralistic universe by William James. I think we need 2 videos. The last one will be on what he calls the ladder of faith. And the second last one, this one, will be a relatively short overview of his metaphysics in this nifty little book. Now, let me begin by saying 2 things. First, maybe I'll try to do a good summary video, just summarizing this book in a more orderly, more brief, concise fashion, and maybe put it in the great text playlist, maybe airing it a lot sooner than this series airs. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen that video, check the great text playlist, see if you can find one there. I can't promise I'll do that, but I might. The future is yet murky. Speaking of being murky, I'm not sure that's the right word, but blurry. The future is blurry. And speaking of things being murky or blurry, this video is a bit blurry, isn't it? There's something wrong with the lighting. It's I think it's a crack in my screen protector. And until I get the screen replaced, things are going to be like this. But I think this angle will reduce it to just a little blurriness, which is not nearly as bad as it was as I was trying to make this video at a different angle. It was horrible. All right. So some things are blurry, some things are murky, the future is not known. And on the Hegelian philosophy of the absolute, if we do not know the future, that doesn't mean that the future is not determined. In the Hegelian philosophy of the absolute, where all is God, all is one and all is God, and this God contains everything or is everything, in this Hegelian philosophy of the absolute, there is no time difference between one time and another, because all times are contained in the absolute. There is no change, there is no possibility, no free will, there's only necessity. The world as we know it is an illusion. We ourselves are parts of God, or maybe it would be better to say we simply are God, and thus we are not as we know ourselves to be. We are foreigners. We, as we know, as we experience ourselves to be, and the world as we experience it, is not real, and we, as we experience ourselves, are foreigners to ultimate reality. This is what James has said in this book, and now he's going to say it again. And he says, referring to God on the philosophy of the absolute, remember that one of our troubles with the absolute on the Hegelian perspective, remember that one of our troubles with that was its essential foreignness and monstrosity. There really is no other word for it than that. God is a foreign monster in the Hegelian philosophy. Its having the all-inclusive form gave to it an essentially heterogeneous nature from ourselves. And this great difference between absolutism and pluralism demands no difference in the universe's material content. It follows from a difference in the form alone. I think his point in this sentence is that the facts of the universe, the world as we experience it, are pretty much the same in both philosophies. Only one of them says that logically this world as we experience it can't be real because of our arguments that we Hegelians make for God as the absolute. And the other one says the world as it appears to be probably is real. The all-form or monistic form makes the foreignest result. Each form or pluralistic form leaves the intimacy undisturbed. So foreignness means an ultimate reality we can't be friends with. It means a world we can't be at home in. Intimacy means an ultimate reality we can relate to. We can be on good terms with it. And a world we can be at home in. The all form, that means the idea of the ultimate reality as a God who is everything, that all form concept makes that foreignness inescapable. The pluralistic form, or the each form, that means the idea that the idea of the each form or pluralistic form is the idea of reality is not all one, as a reality where the ultimate reality, if there's a God, doesn't contain everything. And this is a world we can be at home in. This is a God we can relate to. No matter what the content of the universe may be, if you only allow that it is many, everywhere and always, that nothing real escapes from having an environment, so far from defeating its rationality as the absolutists so unanimously pretend, you leave it in possession of the maximum amount of rationality practically attainable by our minds. Now, this is rehearsing what he argued at greater length in an earlier lecture. Let me just see if I can summarize it here. If we recognize that what is real is not all one thing, if we say that everything that exists has something outside of itself that it's not identical to, everything has an environment, nothing real escapes from having an environment. This does not mean the universe is irrational, like those Hegelian philosophers say. What it means is only that we've maybe sacrificed one of the things that rationality, things that are good for rationality, desiderata of rationality. Desideratum is a good word. Look it up if you don't know it. We've sacrificed one of the desiderata of rationality, but we've kept one really important desideratum of rationality. We've kept practicality. The world conceived according to the each form or the pluralistic form, the world where not all is one, is a world we can live in. It's a world we can work in. It's a world where our experience matches reality, and we are able to take our experience seriously. And among other things, that means act responsibly, take future experience seriously by acting responsibly in the world. Now let's see, let's skip a paragraph or two where he talks about rationality and suggests that maybe the word is confusing the way we've been using it, at least in his day. Let's go to this part. But what at bottom is meant by calling the universe many or by calling it one? What does it mean to say the universe is many rather than one? Pragmatically interpreted, pluralism, or the doctrine that it is many, means only that the sundry parts of reality may be externally related. Everything you can think of, however vast or inclusive, has on the pluralistic view a genuinely external environment of some sort of amount. So what does it mean to say that all reality is not one? It means everything that exists has something outside of it. It has an environment. The pluralistic world is thus more like a federal republic than like an empire or a kingdom. However much may be collected, however much may report itself as present at any effective center of consciousness or action, something else is self-governed and absent and unreduced to unity. However much of the world may be united into one thing, there's still something else that is not united into one thing. However big God is, there's still something outside of God. That's the pluralistic philosophy William James prefers. Monism, on the other hand, insists that when you come down to reality as such, to the reality of realities, everything is present to everything else in one vast, instantaneous, co-implicated completeness. Nothing can, in any sense, functional or substantial, be really absent from anything else. All things interpenetrate and telescope together in a great total conflux. In the Hegelian philosophy of the absolute, the monistic philosophy, everything is not only connected to everything else, but everything is everything else. Everything is one in the mind of God, in the Hegelian philosophy of absolute. And it doesn't just mean God thinks of us as one. It means that's all we actually are. We are only as God thinks of us, and God thinks of us as one. For pluralism, all that we are required to admit as the constitution of reality is what we ourselves find empirically realized in every minimum of finite life. The world as we experience it is consistent with a pluralistic philosophy where not all is one. Briefly, it is this, that nothing real is absolutely simple, that every smallest bit of experience is a multum in parvo, plurally related, that each relation is one aspect, character, or function, way of its being taken, or way of its taking something else, and that a bit of reality, when actively engaged in one of these relations, is not by that very fact engaged in all the other relations simultaneously. Now this is summarizing what he said, again, earlier at great length. He's saying, for pluralism, according to his own preferred philosophy, where not all reality is one, the world is as we experience it, and briefly that means nothing real is absolutely simple. Every smallest bit of experience is a multum in parvo. I think we could translate that as a many in small bits. Everything is an indivisible unity of smaller parts. An indivisible unity of smaller parts. Nothing real is absolutely simple. Every smallest bit of experience is an indivisible unity of smaller bits. Each relation is one aspect, character, function, way that's being taken. Each relation between things is a way a thing takes another thing or is taken. The fact that I am in front of the camera, left of the desk, next to the teacup, holding the teacup, all of these relations are ways we can take me or the desk. We can take the teacup as being held by me as holding the teacup, me is left of the desk is right of me, and me is in front of the camera, or the camera is in front of me. These are ways of taking things. These are ways of experiencing and interacting with the world. But all of these relations are, well, they're just what they are. When one thing has a relation with another thing, that doesn't mean that everything else must also be included. A bit of reality when actively engaged in one of these relations is not by the very fact engaged in all the other relations simultaneously. In other words, the fact that I'm left of the desk does not... Let me rephrase that. No, that's perfect. The fact that I'm left of the desk does not mean that I'm in front of the camera. Now, I am in front of the camera, I am left of the desk, and those are both useful ways for me to think about my situation, what I'm going to do next, what I'm doing now. My legs are uncomfortable. How do I shift my legs to get more comfortable now that I think about it? Yes, they were uncomfortable. All of these things are relevant. But the fact that I'm left of the desk does not mean all of those other things. It's just one aspect of the world. It's one aspect of me. And in the Hegelian philosophy, no one aspect of anything can be independent of everything else. In the Hegelian way of taking the world, everything's connected and everything is one. And I can't be left of the desk without also being in front of the camera, and I can't even be left of the desk without being the desk and being the camera, and the desk and the camera and me are all parts of God, or maybe better to say we are all God. All is God. In the Hegelian philosophy, one connection means everything else. Not just everything else is connected or every other connection, but every dang thing else is all one thing. That's the Hegelian philosophy. The pluralistic philosophy, James is saying, means you can look at the practical fact that I am left of the desk, I'm in front of the camera, and I'm holding the teacup, and that's it. I'm not saying anything else. When I say I'm holding the teacup, I'm not saying anything else about my relationship to anything else, the teacup's relationship to anything else, or my identity in relation to the teacup. I'm just saying I'm holding the teacup. That's all I'm saying. It's a normal, practical, commonsensical way to think, and we don't have to surrender all practical rationality for the clever logic of some modern philosophers. There's no need to do that on the pluralistic philosophy. Okay, just a little bit more. If the each form be the eternal form of reality no less than it is the world of temporal appearance, if the way the world appears to be in time, i.e. not everything is the same thing, is also the way the world actually is, then we still have a coherent world and not an incarnate incoherence, as is charged by so many absolutists. The world still makes sense if the world is the way it appears to be. Our multiverse still makes a universe. For every part, though it may not be an actual or immediate connection, is nevertheless in some possible or mediated connection with every other part, however remote, though the fact that each part hangs together with its very next neighbors, through the fact that each part hangs together with its very next neighbors, an inextricable interfusion. The type of union, it is true, is different here from the monistic type. Let's see. Let me just see if I can paraphrase that. Our multiverse still makes a universe. James is talking about the multiverse. This is not what you get in the modern Spider-Man movies. We're not talking about that kind of multiverse. We're saying the universe is many things. And that doesn't mean it's a bunch of disconnected things. It's still a universe, a united diversity of things, because everything is still connected. Everything is connected to everything else. The teacup is connected to your chair because I'm holding the teacup, you're looking at the teacup, you're listening to me, and you're sitting in the chair, or you were at some other time, or will be in the future. And this means the teacup is connected to your chair, and it's not the same thing as the chair. And to say I'm holding the teacup is not to say that the teacup has anything to do with the chair, but these connections still exist. All reality is connected. Not all reality is one. The recognition of this fact of coalescence of next with next in concrete experience, so that all the insulating cuts we make there are artificial products of the conceptualizing faculty. This will make a whole lot more sense if you read or watched the earlier video of James saying that stuff earlier, is what distinguishes the empiricism which I call radical from the bugaboo empiricism of the traditional rationalist critics, which rightly or wrongly is accused of chopping up experience into atomistic sensations incapable of union with one another until a purely intellectual principle has swooped down upon them from on high and folded them in its own conjunctive categories. Let's see. I think well, maybe not. We'll not stop there. But before we do the two more sentences at the end of this video, let's make one observation on the subject of what the heck did I just read? What is he talking about? Okay, he's talking about how everything's connected. And that means that empiricism, being the idea that we get knowledge from experience and traditionally associated with the empiricism that focused on sensory experience from early modern British philosophers like Berkeley, Hume, Locke. This empiricism as such, does not mean that we have to take the world atomistically as a bunch of distinct separate things, because experience is many in one. Experience is a unity of diverse things. I'm experiencing what I'm feeling in my left leg. I'm experiencing how my eyes feel. I'm super tired. I'm experiencing being super tired. I'm experiencing looking at myself in this somewhat blurry image in the phone camera. I'm experiencing the warmth of the glorious jasmine tea in here. And I'm experiencing the thought of, oh, thank heaven it's Friday, and things like that. All of these experiences are merged together. And even just feeling the warmth of the teacup doesn't mean one tiny moment of time and another tiny moment of time as distinct realities, or the experience of holding the teacup at this one moment, the experience of holding the teacup at another moment, or the experience of feeling the smoothness of the teacup, the hardness of the teacup, and the warmth of the teacup as three distinct things, or the experience of feeling the warmth in the teacup and feeling tired. All of these experiences, all of these realities come together and they overlap with each other. We can't atomize experience. We can't take experience and chop it up into these tiny, tiny bits. It's all continuous. There's a perfect adjective for describing this that I can't quite find, and it's really annoying me. All experience overlaps. The Hegelians tend to think that if you are an empiricist, if you think knowledge comes from experience, you must divide reality into all these little bits, and you must divide experience into all these little bits. And James is like, no way, dude. That's not what experience even is. We experience things overlapping. We experience the world as a continuity, and experience itself is a continuity. All right, reality may exist distributively, just as it sensibly seems to after all, and that possibility I do insist. So James is insisting that it is possible that the world is as it appears to be. All is connected, not all is one. And now that I've just said that again, I'm thinking, gee, I was going to see if I could give you a short summary, say 2 to 5 sentences, no more than 10 if I can't stop at 5, of the Metaphysics of William James. Because the Metaphysics of William James, in this later writing of William James, is the subject of this video, not to mention the subject of this book, and it sure would be great if I could just summarize everything. But now I'm thinking, maybe I just did. All is connected. Not all is one. And different things, without being quite the same thing, still overlap with each other. And God himself does not contain everything and must be thought of as being finite in the sense that there is some reality outside of God. And this is a picture of the world that is consistent with our experiences, and it's one we can work with. Now, in American pragmatism, William James, John Dewey, pardon my ignorance, I don't know much about Peirce. Maybe someday I'll get back to Peirce and do some real work with Peirce. No promises. But that's C.S. Peirce, P-I-E-R-C-E. If you want to call him Pierce, that's fine with me. I don't care. But William James and John Dewey I know fairly well. American pragmatism, with James and Dewey at least, is interested in taking seriously past experience, but also looking responsibly towards future experience. And that's going to be the subject of this next video, how this metaphysics he's talking about is not only perfectly reasonable, which is what he's just described, building on all the arguments earlier in the book, this metaphysics he said, this metaphysics he's described, this pluralistic pantheism, all is connected, all is touched with divinity, all is known by God, we could say, or at least connected to God, and we even can be considered to be parts of the mind of God. We are the outer fringes of God's mind, as he described in the previous lecture. This perspective is one that fits our experiences, which is that aspect of pragmatism that looks to the past and wants to learn from experience and take seriously past experience. But it's also one we can work with in the future, and I think that will be more pronounced in the next video when he talks about the faith ladder, and I shall see you then. Thanks for watching.